don't see how we can make bigger enemies.
To be offended or frightened of everything.
So you've become like the sort of Tony Scarface of podcasting.
Thank you for tuning in. Happy Wednesday. Welcome to the morning show. So glad to have you here again this week. Thank you so much for all the wonderful words and messages from our last episode. We had the one and only Terry DeMonte in studio. By the way, he has a podcast that is starting this week.
No way. He does.
With our one and only Ted Bird.
His co-host is very handsome.
The handsomest.
Yeah.
And that is starting, I believe this week it's starting.
It started this morning.
It started this morning.
The first episode dropped this morning of Standing By, the Terry and Ted podcast.
So head on over and watch that. I haven't seen it. I'm sure it's probably interesting.
Very interesting. Interesting guest.
Yeah.
Rob Ford's sobriety coach.
Oh, wow.
From back in the day when the Toronto mayor was still alive and smoking crack and drinking and swashbuckling.
What a time that was.
Yeah.
Greatest mayor of all time.
You think?
Yeah. You gotta be. It's a real man. We're a real man. We have a lack of real men in politics nowadays. He was a wild one. Men are meant to be wild in life.
He was a bit of a train wreck, though.
Yeah.
There's that too, but let's ignore that.
So head on over to the YouTube page, guys. Subscribe and hit that notification button so you can get all the new episodes as they come out. You can head on over to patreon.com/Pantelis for all exclusive content where we have lots of stuff like the intellectuals are there. There you have it. And I think that's it. Do we have any other plugs?
Subscribe, comment. If you don't comment, I will be under your bed at night.
Yeah, George, are you cold? Ted wearing only a t-shirt, but George looks like it's snowing in Montreal. I don't know. I got dressed like this because I drop off my kids at school every morning, and I got to get out of the car, and I didn't know if
it was raining this morning.
It was a little rainy.
People say, lots of people say, "Oh, I love the fall with the change of seasons."
Exactly.
Exactly. This cold rain, and it's melancholy because winter is imminent.
I want one season. That's it.
Well, where can you live for that? San Diego? I've heard that San Diego is like perfect year round.
We went when we got married with my wife. My wife is Colombian, so
we got married with my wife as opposed to married with your dog.
By the way, I figured out the jingle for Standing By.
Oh yeah?
Camera on the wall. Who's the handsomest boy of them all?
That would be me.
So we got married and we went to Colombia on our honeymoon, and we got married actually in a couple of days now, in October. So it was this time of the year. So we go to Colombia and we went. I can't remember where we went, but it was like a nice forest, whatever, mountainous region. And I'm like, how the fuck are the trees still green over here? And I was still stuck with our mentality over here. Like end of October.
The cartel said, "You fucking stay green." That's how
they threatened the trees. Yeah. Better stay green, motherfucker. So here we're used to the different colors. Some trees I have actually lost.
So the climate is pretty consistent year round in Colombia.
It
must get hot sometimes there, though.
It depends where you are. Bogota is actually it's elevated.
Bogota. Is your wife in the cartel? Yeah, nice.
Yeah, she ran away. So they don't have that kind of climate where the grounds get cold and
When the leaves
trees,
turn gay and decide to fall.
So it's always green and
Homo leaves.
What is this changing colors, bro?
Hey, listen.
Speaking of changing colors, what the fuck is this?
These are nice. We have pride cords in the studio. And our microphone cords are all full on pride, multicolored. It's like the rainbow flag in here. Tell me this: your kids should speak at least 4 languages. Do they?
Yeah. I speak to them in Greek. My wife speaks to them in Spanish, and obviously they learn English and French.
That's fantastic. What a gift that is.
It's fascinating to just see how fast they learn, right?
Well, kids especially, they soak it up like a sponge.
Yeah.
How old are your kids?
My eldest is turning 9 soon in a week, and the young one is 5.
Both girls? 2 girls?
Yeah, 2 girls.
Look at you, man.
Yeah. So
They're gonna break your heart, eh? You know.
Oh fuck, man.
Yeah.
I'm enjoying these years because I hear that once they hit 13, 14.
Did I tell you? I might have told you the story about my 15-year-old when she was in the car with her friend.
Yeah.
I told you he'd say something stupid.
Oh man.
Christ.
So I don't know how we're gonna deal with that. I don't know. We're trying to do the best we can so that it doesn't.
Yeah, they'll be. I'm sure they'll be.
But,
Fine. But I think that's so cool. And I've said this to you guys before. You guys are fortunate to grow up where you did. In a household where you spoke. You both spoke Greek at home, and then you learn French and English at school and on the street because you live in Montreal. From a dum-dum who comes from white bread Anglophone Fredericton, it just, you guys probably take it for granted because it's always been that way for you.
It's what it is,
But when you come in from the outside, and I remember when I married my first wife and she was Italian, St. Michel Italian. And I still have clothes that smell like the Miron Quarry.
The what? Sorry?
The Miron Quarry.
I don't get the reference.
That's George gets it. It's up in St. Michel, and it used to be a quarry, and then they turned it into a garbage dump, and it fucking stinks.
Oh, shit.
And my in-laws lived like 2 streets over from that. They were on 2nd Avenue, yeah. But I used to remember being somewhere with her and her friends that she grew up with, or other people, French people from the neighborhood where she grew up, and listening to them shift seamlessly from one language to the other. It just is so impressive. When you don't have that gift yourself to watch and witness that, it's really something.
Yeah, I don't know if it's a curse or if it's a privilege because we catch ourselves sometimes too. In one sentence, we throw in Greek, French, English just to make it to the end of the sentence. It's the first word that comes out.
Well, there's a couple of things I've noticed too that I never heard anywhere else. As an example, in Montreal, and I don't know if this is an Italian thing or if it's all English Montrealers, but English Montrealers, I noticed this early on, they'll end their sentences with fuck. Yeah.
What?
Hey, how you doing, fuck?
No way.
What happened with the Habs, fuck? And I think that comes from the in French when they just throw st away. They throw away at the end. Ah, les Canadiens st. I think that's where that comes from.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I've never heard that.
You've probably just never noticed it. I've really noticed that when I first got here.
I've noticed it. Who does it a lot? But it makes it funny to me. Joey Elias does it.
He'll drop a fuck at the end of a sentence.
At the end of a sentence, and I go, "That's interesting," but I like it.
Yeah, it's great, and it's uniquely Montreal.
Yeah.
You don't hear it anywhere else. Fuck.
The bad thing about us is this sense of belonging, and I've had this conversation with so many people, especially these guys that I worked with in politics that they fight for this French kind of identity in Quebec, which I understand and it's fine. And then I would tell them, where do we belong? Because I'm born here, but for my entire life, people have thought I was an immigrant because they can't pronounce my name. But I'm not, right? I'm born. I'm born in Montreal. I'm a Quebecer. Yeah. So we don't feel like we belong, or at least when we were younger, growing up, we never felt like there was any place for us over here. And when we traveled abroad, like say we went to Greece, we were the little Canadians over there that come,
Oh, yeah?
So obviously I'm not Greek.
So wherever you go, you feel out of place.
Exactly.
That sucks.
Yeah. So you go to Greece and they don't want you there, or they don't want you. I mean, they're fine. Everyone loves tourists over there, and especially if you have family and friends.
But they don't feel.
But they don't. There's no way.
Consider you part of the furniture.
No.
Yeah.
You're not Greek, dude. You're from Canada. You're an American. Some of them.
Yeah.
Some of them consider because we're from the American continent. Yeah, there's little American kids coming over here. So, and then we come back home and we're like, Mozi Grek, you know what I mean?
Yeah, but tell me this: do you experience, or have you over the course of your lifetime experienced Mozi Grek at street level, or does that only come from politicians and the media?
No, that it never came from that context. I never experienced that in politics. I would always explain to them what we went through, but it was mostly on the street level.
Really, eh? So you find that on street level you were never accepted, or often not accepted as a real Quebecer?
Yeah.
That's interesting because that has not been my experience. It's not like it's not as if, I'm embraced, but when I interact with Francophone Quebecers, for the most part, I've always felt very comfortable and welcome, and I've never felt like an outsider, or I've never been made to feel like an outsider. They might look at me as an outsider, but they don't, they don't lean on me.
No, we did. I remember growing up in school. Our elementary school wasn't the case because there were the Greek school. I mean, there were French schools, but they were the schools of the Greek community.
Are you a child of Bill 101?
Yes,
you are, eh?
Yeah, and I'm actually proud of it. I love the fact that I'm a product of Bill 101 because look, I mean, we learned French, and I think it's a huge advantage.
Where'd you learn your English? Where'd you pick up your English then?
School, streets, whatever. Yeah.
Because for example, for my ex-wife's generation, Terry, who grew up in Saint Michel, she is about my age, a couple of years younger. So she went to high school before Bill 101. She went to John F. Kennedy in Saint Michel. Right. So they English at school, French on the street, Italian at home. Yeah. So it was pretty cut and dried where they picked up their languages.
The elementary school that I went to is a trilingual school. I mean, they're French schools by law. But every day we did French, English, and Greek. Okay. Every day. So we were immersed into this environment where these three languages were spoken on a daily basis, and it became our thing, right? I mean, that's why when we speak, we just mix every language, It's a good problem to have, don't get me wrong. But so elementary school aside, when we went to high school, and then CEGEP, because I went to French CEGEP, that's where I saw it the most. That's where people thought I was an immigrant. They're very often like, hey, where'd you come from?
Oh, really?
I'm born here, man. Yeah. What are you talking about? Yeah. So I think it's the reality. I mean, now I don't even think about it. Hopefully my kids won't have to go through that. And I think they won't because, I mean, we always spoke with an accent as well. I don't think my daughters will. So
I think people of color really get that a lot. Hey, where are you from? Well, I'm from here. No, but I mean, where are you from?
Yeah.
I'm from fucking here. Fuck.
Yeah. So that was interesting. It was interesting growing up.
The Greek schools, like, for example, I did a stand-up comedy show at a Greek school. It was Exonomies?
Demosthenes.
Maybe. Yeah. Are those private schools?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because obviously you can't send under Bill 101. What about if you're born here?
Yeah.
Do your kids have to go to French school if they go public, or could they go to English school?
No. Because my parents weren't grandfathered in.
Okay.
So my family didn't go to school here. So we didn't get, we don't have that protective clause that under which, like, you went to school here, I guess?
No, I grew up in Fredericton. I didn't get here till I was like 26 years old.
So your kids were Bill 101. They went to French school?
No.
Unless they were protected from the mom.
Exactly.
Okay, that's why.
Yeah, exactly.
So it takes a family member that has been grandfathered in, and that trickles down the family. Obviously, we didn't have that. Nobody in my family studied here in English, so by default, we had to go into the French system. The schools belonging to the Greek community. This is a fun. We're going to get to the news, but this is very interesting.
News. This is interesting.
Back in the day, the Greek community is very old. I mean, it was funded in 1906, So the schools that they created back in the day, if you weren't Catholic, you couldn't have a French school. So that's why the Greeks had English schools. Some Italians went to English schools as well. The Armenians, all these people, they had English schools up until the 70s. And then in the 70s, when the PQ came into power and they wanted to approach the ethnics, they approached them and told them, look, we're going to make you an offer to convert your schools from English to French, keep them as private, but we will fund them as if they were public. And I think the Greek community was the only one to accept it. Mm-hmm. It was the only one. So all the schools converted to French, and the government would fund them 100%, even though they kept the private aspect. So only Greek kids would have access to them. and they were funded 100%. Up until the early 2000s, where the Jewish community found out that the Greeks had this deal with the government and they wanted the same thing. And the government said, listen, we can't start doing that. I mean, back in the day, in the 70s, how many communities were as organized as the Greeks? You know, I mean, there were a handful. Now there's so many. If we start doing it for all of them, there's no money for that. We can't do it. And they leaked it to the Gazette. It was front page news that the Greek community or the government had this very exclusive deal, and that public funds would fund these private institutions. It was a whole thing, right? And that was basically just to force the government. But I remember back in the day was Michelle Courchain. She was the education minister. Man, she had bigger balls than we did, man. Trust me. She goes, yeah, no problem. I'll see your bluff. Yeah. Here we go. So she canceled the deal for everyone. So the Greek schools lost their funding, and they went.
PQ or Liberal?
It was Liberal. She was a Liberal minister, yeah. And so she stopped the funding, and now they're funded like every private school. Yeah. And since then, I think they allow also other kids to come in. They have no choice now because they need the money, right? So they can't just rely on just having Greek kids. So it's open to all the kids. The good schools, they have like 6 campuses, and it's amazing. I mean, even non-Greek families that I've spoken to, they're like, listen, we send our kids there. There's an excellent program. They learn French and English. And in addition to that, they learn Greek. So you have little like Chinese kids, little black kids.
Yeah. That's cool.
They finish elementary school speaking Greek.
Yeah, that's great.
So it's
nothing wrong with that, man. The more languages you can speak, the better. Communication's what it's all about. Even though my kids all could have gone to English school, 2 of the 4 went to French elementary. They went to Joseph Enrico in Baie-d'Urfé, which is a good school. And they're both fluently bilingual. And my eldest, who went to Gardenview in Saint Laurent in English, is fluently bilingual nonetheless. Just because she is, I'm not sure.
I think that school. I think that school has an immersive. They have French immersion.
That might be why. And she lives in France now, so she speaks. So she speaks French with a snobby accent. I tell you the story about her. The first time she came back from Paris, she'd lived in Paris for about a year, and she came back, and I said, "So now that you lived in Paris for a year, how do you find Montreal when you come back?" And she says, "I find it banal and provincial." And I said, "You are a Parisienne, aren't you?" Yeah, she's been over there for about 7 years now. Yeah.
Where?
She's in Bordeaux now.
Oh, in Bordeaux.
But I think she's going to move back to Paris because her husband travels for work. He's a computer guy. And so he's got to go to Paris all the time anyway because that's the hub, right?
Yeah.
Usually if he's going somewhere else in Europe, he's got to go through Paris. So they were kind of like, they moved to Bordeaux because it was less expensive. But, at the end of the day, with the extra travel expenses, they might as well
Doesn't change
Paris.
anything,
Yeah.
Paris has become quite I don't want to say a horrible city. I mean, I've never been, but I have a lot of friends that have visited Paris, and it's not the Paris that you would imagine.
Well, I've gone to Paris several times, and I've always stayed around central Paris, where for lack of a better term, like the tourist areas, right? Like I haven't gone out into the outskirts, into the north, in the tough neighborhoods. I might have driven through them on the way to and from the airport, but I found central Paris, where I spent my time in the times that I've gone there, I found it was everything that I expected and more. I just think it's the most fantastic city in the world.
Wow.
I just love it. And they like me in Paris, too, because they think I'm an American who can speak a little bit of French. Oh, yeah. And they find that to be quite charming with my bad accent.
It's because you don't speak French like Quebecers do.
Exactly.
I don't think they appreciate our Quebec accent in France.
Yeah, no, and I got to be careful because the more I learn how to speak French in Quebec, the more likely I am to go over there and say, donne-moi le. So I have to always be careful to say, est-ce que je peux avoir un café, s'il vous plaît?
Oh my God! What do we tackle today, Ted? There's quite a few things. Speaking of language, there was a language thing that I want to talk to you about, but maybe that's too heavy to start with.
Let's start with Israel and Hamas. Language is much too heavy.
The color thing. You wanted to talk about the NHL and the decision they made on the rainbow tape,
and how ironic that I come into the studio today and we have rainbow-colored cords, microphone cords. Yeah, the NHL reversed field. They were holding Pride Nights for inclusivity purposes for the LGBTQ2+S also as well community. and a few players objected and opted out of using pride-colored tape or wearing pride jerseys for warm-up. Some European players from countries, I think Russia. I think in Russia is
Russia doesn't like them.
yeah. Well, there's actually laws against what is considered to be LGBT propaganda. So some Russian players were like, no, not wearing it. Some Canadian and or American players from more fundamentalist Christian backgrounds, no, I'm not on board, and it caused a big stink. And the NHL went, well, you know what? Fuck it. We're not going to do any of it at all then. None of it. It's all out. It's all gone.
Isn't that weird, though, that for a couple of players, you backtrack on an entire...
Well, that's not the end of the story. They did the same thing now this week because one player, Travis Dermott from the Phoenix or the Arizona Coyotes, after they said, okay, no rainbow tape for anybody, he said, fuck you, and he put rainbow tape on his stick. And then the NHL went, okay, if you want to put rainbow tape on your stick, go ahead. But they've reached, it took them they took the long way of getting there, but they've reached that happy medium where if you want to put it on your stick, knock yourself out. If you don't want it, don't bother.
Yeah, I didn't. I mean, I'm not a big sports guy, but I did see this come up in the media. I didn't read into it that much. And I figured when this story came out, I was like, but why do people care? Like, it's just fucking tape.
People don't care. I'll tell you why there's a big stink is because for whatever reason, and I don't know why, but the hockey media is the most woke media in all of sports, and maybe the most woke media in legacy mainstream media, period. And I don't know what it is. They're so fucking woke, these guys. It's unbelievable. They raise such a stink when a handful of players said, I don't want to wear the warm-up jersey because it's not, morally I'm not on board with it. And oh my God, they went crazy. And then when Buddy from Phoenix put the tape on his stick the other day, it was like he was a fucking war hero. They wanted to give him the Victoria Cross, the Congressional Medal of Honor. It was unbelievable. So it gets amplified out of proportion.
I can understand the jersey thing because as the National Hockey League, okay, it's only for warm up, but you kind of want this the same look, right? The players go out, you kind of want them all to be dressed the same, right? It's organized sports, and if you have all the players coming out with the LGBTQ jerseys, and you have 5 or 6 that don't want to wear, and they come out with a regular jersey, it kind of looks bad. People are going to start like that. I understand. You're either all on board. I think. Look, I mean, it's my opinion. I don't even know why people didn't want to get on board with that. I get that there's politics back home and didn't want to suffer any repercussions. Maybe they have family back home. Who knows what it is, right? I mean, there's all this reality.
Well, some of it is just it's their own fundamental morals.
Yeah.
They to them that lifestyle is morally wrong. And in 2023, that doesn't fly with most people, but it's their belief. They're not, they're not hurting anyone.
No, I know. But see, we're so immersed into our kind of way of life and our, way of thinking over here that to us, it's so normal. It's like, dude, what is there not to accept? Like, it's hard to understand someone that wants to go countercurrent to that culture. Well,
right? To me, it's normal to the point where, as you said earlier, why do we even bother? Who cares? Who gives a shit? You want to put rainbow tape on your stick? Away you go.
But the stick for me is different than the jerseys, because the jerseys, okay, you go outside, it's still a show. You're like, okay, it's a team. Everyone has to dress the same, and if one doesn't do it, it ruins the whole thing. And I can understand the headache. But the fucking tape, who gives a shit?
Yeah. Well, they're not. I don't think they're doing the jerseys anymore. I think I might be wrong, but I think they've done away with the theme nights. Like they decided, you know what? It's not worth the headache. And I think we've reached a point where you don't need the theme nights. Like you say, it's not an issue anymore for the overwhelming majority of people, and it just seems to create unnecessary angst and controversy.
So the tape, they initially they said you can't put tape, or what was the story?
Yeah, initially they said, okay, none of this, nothing. I don't know if it was necessarily a hard and fast rule. The league just said, you know what, fuck it. We're not doing pride stuff anymore. No, and then the one guy put the tape on his stick. Here's another interesting component to the story. Scotiabank on their social media put up a big poster, Pride. I forget exactly what it said, but it was about Pride and hockey. And Scotiabank's a huge sponsor of the NHL. Scotiabank pours big money into the NHL. So if you follow the money, that could be behind the NHL's thinking of, okay, if you want to put the tape on, go ahead.
Yeah. See, the tape is so ridiculous to me because back when when I was a kid, everyone had black tape on the sticks. That's all.
I use white tape myself. I like the white tape.
Black or white, yeah. And then people started using yellow and pink and all these different colors, and who cares?
Exactly. Who cares?
What is the issue?
It's not like, to my knowledge, I don't think that anyone in the rainbow community is unwelcome in hockey at this point. What gender are you? What's your gender identity? No, sorry, you can't play.
You can't play.
Yeah.
I don't know. You see, for me, when politics enters the sports milieu, that's where I disconnect. I was like, you don't need that shit, man. I used to watch a lot of. I used to watch a lot of soccer, and the one thing I appreciated, they started coming out with kids and racism and that sort of thing. That's fine because there's a lot of eyeballs, and it's a good message to spread, right?
Yeah.
Aside from that, though, can you leave politics out of the fucking arena? Let them. They're paid to play a game. They're not paid to sell any item on any political agenda. That's not what they're there for. Let the politicians deal with that. These guys are professional athletes, and that's what they're paid to do.
And sexuality to me is a little bit different than race. There's not a moral component to race, but for some people there is a moral component to sexuality.
Right. Yeah. It's a good point. Let's talk about that Santa Claus parade you wanted to talk about. I'm not so sure I understand.
You know what they say, the three things you should never talk about in public: sex, politics, and religion. That's what we're going to talk about today. Sex, politics, and religion.
Nice.
Yeah, the Girl Guides opted out of a Santa Claus parade. I think it's in the Ottawa suburb of Kanata, because I always mix up the definition of the word. Secular means to do with religion, right? If something is religious, it's secular.
Okay.
So the Girl Guides said, No,
secular means not religious.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, the Girl Guides decided...
Is that it? Right?
Look that up, Poseidon, what secular means. The Girl Guides decided that a Santa Claus parade is a religious celebration, and it goes against their the
Santa Claus parade is a religious celebration.
Yeah, because it's about Christmas.
Oh, God.
So it goes against their inclusivity policy, so they're not going to go.
Who are the Girl Guides? Are these like scouts?
Yeah, this like scouts,
First
but
of
for
all,
girls.
the name Girl Guides is terrible. We know women have zero sense of direction.
And a scout as well.
I give you Amelia Earhart. And they always have to stop to pee.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
So they decide not to participate because it goes against their values or whatever.
Exactly. Yeah. So they bailed out. So fuck them. I'm not buying their cookies. You're not going to go on the Santa Claus parade? I'm not buying their cookies. Do you know about Girl Guide cookies?
Yeah,
where you been living, Church?
They were Girl Scouts. They used to the Girl Scouts. Yeah, now they're called Girl Guides.
Because I
think it's kind of the same thing.
Yeah.
I guarantee you they called it the Girl Guides because Girl Scouts was too closely associated with Boy Scouts.
When I was a kid, I was in Cub Scouts, and there was Cub Scouts, and then you get a little bit older and you went to Scouts.
Yeah.
On the girls' side, it started out the equivalent of Cub Scouts was brownies, and they did away with that because it was. Guess why? Guess why they did away with brownies? You can't call them brownies. That sounds racist.
But admit that it's a weird name to call a fucking scout.
Well, it's because they had little brown uniforms. That's why they called them brownies. And
when you say brownies, I think of the dessert.
Yeah, so do I.
That's what I think.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
How racist do you have to be when somebody says brownies? You think, oh, not these fucking Indians.
Yeah.
How racist do you have to be to think
All it took was for the first black or Indian girl to join.
Exactly.
And I was like, well, I'm sorry, what do you call them?
Yeah.
What?
So you're a brownie.
That's so funny.
Yeah. So it could be now the girls, maybe it's Girl Guides and then Girl Scouts now. I'm not sure. I just know they're not going in the Santa Claus parade. and it's stupid. It's stupid. It's just like the hockey tape thing. If you polled 1,000 people, 900 and whatever would say, I don't care.
Do you remember back? This was fairly recently, where the city of Montreal, I think it was under Mayor Tremblay, where they removed the Christmas tree from City Hall, and they didn't do the what do you call it?
The lighting, the trimming, the tree trimming.
No, the City Hall used to have a Christmas tree with the fucking the little Jesus kind of cave there, whatever you call it.
The Jesus cave. Yeah, the manger. Now I'm grasping for the word.
Fuck is it called? Whatever.
You know the
Yeah, it's the whole birth scenario with the manger and Joseph and Mary and the baby and the wise men and the shepherds and the whole thing.
Jesus and his street gang, baby. The posse.
Yo, Jesus. Oh, it's going to drive me crazy now. It's contagious
nativity,
sometimes. Nativity scene,
nativity scene.
Yeah. Isn't that funny, eh? Sometimes when one person can't think of something, it becomes contagious. Nobody can think of it.
So yeah, they had.
So you admit that stupidity could be contagious.
It is. Yeah, it really is.
It shows Poseidon is very present in the studio. So they had removed it so that they can please every Montrealer, because there were some mostly Muslim groups that were complaining and la la la. See, for me, that is ridiculous because it's a tradition. You don't have to fucking believe in Christmas or Santa or whatever. It's Christmas, and this is what we've been doing here for centuries.
This country and this province were founded on traditional Judeo-Christian values.
That's right.
Why should we throw those out the window to make somebody else happy?
Yeah. And I love Christmas.
Yeah.
Christmas is, I think, one of my favorite holidays in general. You know, there's nothing better than giving. Everyone's giving to everyone. Everyone's happy.
Yeah.
You know, some people are giving AIDS, but that's besides the point.
And it all started when the baby Jesus got gold and frankincense from a guy named Myrrh. That was fantastic.
That's fun.
Something like that.
But I get why it bothered you. When I worked for Telus at Alexis Neon, the mall every year would put up a Christmas tree as well. And then I think the last year that I was there in what year was it? 2014? 2015. I think they decided not to put up a big Christmas tree, and I was upset. So I get it.
Yeah, God forbid that anyone should get offended. But you know what?
A tree with lights and color, that's insane.
When you try to be all things to all people, you end up being nothing to anyone.
It's true.
Yeah.
And it's not to say that in Montreal, like they've blocked off other religious groups from celebrating.
No, not at all.
It's not the case. But Christmas is Christmas. That's what happens, and I can understand other religious cultures getting offended and stuff. But just don't go to the city hall. I don't know, man. And if you do, who cares? Who cares?
Did you guys watch Charlie Brown Christmas growing up?
Yeah, of course.
Classic, eh?
Yeah.
You didn't, Poseidon?
Oh my God.
Charlie Brown Christmas?
Yeah.
You know who Charlie Brown is, right?
Yeah, it's the kid with the dumb dog there.
Yeah. Actually, the dog's pretty smart. The dog's smarter than Charlie Brown.
Oh yeah. It's true. The
Snoopy.
Snoopy.
Yeah.
I love that cartoon.
Yeah.
What's it called? Charlie Brown what?
Charlie Brown Christmas. And it's a long-standing tradition. That's been on since I was a little kid.
Yeah.
Back in the 1900s.
Yeah.
Oh my God, this came out in 1965?
There you go. I was 6 years old.
God damn.
Yeah, and it plays every Christmas. Charlie Brown Christmas, The Grinch.
Mm-hmm. The Grinch is a classic.
Yeah.
I love The Grinch.
Yeah. Now, as far as I know, those still play on a regular basis every year.
Moses still plays the Ten Commandments.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
The one with Charlton Heston?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah. Every year it's there. There's the Jesus movie also.
The Greatest Story Ever Told. My favorite part of that movie is when Jesus is on the cross, and in the Bible, as per the Bible, there's a Roman centurion is standing underneath the cross, and he's watching Jesus suffering and dying. And I'm probably paraphrasing because I'm not a biblical authority, but he says something to the effect of, surely this man was the Son of God. And in the movie, and you guys might not relate because he's before your time, but they got John Wayne. Do you know who I mean by John Wayne?
He was the
Roman centurion, and he looks up and he goes, surely this man was the Son of God. Pilgrim.
Pulls out his fucking gun.
Yeah.
John Wayne was known for his Western movies.
Yeah, and he could only ever play one character. Like he had no range at all. He was always he was always this guy here.
That's so funny.
That's funny.
John Wayne. Let's bounce over to since we're talking about the language earlier. There's so much to talk about. Bill 96, we've spoken about Bill 96 and the repercussions that it has had, especially for the English-speaking community. There is something that was included in the bill when it was passed in the parliament that nobody ever paid attention to. And that sucks because, and I'm going to say this, even though I have a lot of friends in the party, the Liberal Party has come out now. They're fucking pulling their hair out. They're like, how can you do this? How can this happen? And my question is, dude, you were sitting through the reading of this bill. You did not see the repercussions that were coming with this bill. Basically what's happening, and just to put everyone in context, and we're speaking about this before when you were grandfathered in, right? If you have any member of your immediate family, father, mother, older sister, grandfather, grandmother, that went into English school, by default, you have the right to continue into the English education system, but you need to get what they call an English eligibility certificate. So you apply, the government gives it to you, and that gives you a pass to go into English schools. Now, there's a lot of families that are Anglophone families that have this grandfather that are grandfathered in to the English system, but that decide to send their kids to French school because they think, look, English, I mean, they're going to be speaking English every day.
Well, that's what we did with 2 of our 4.
Yeah, they want their kids to learn French, and that's fine. So they send their kids to French elementary school. And when the time comes for them to go into higher education, so let's say they do elementary and high school in French, and they want to go into English CEGEP or university, the government now, if these kids have gone into French school and they haven't applied for their English eligibility certificates before graduating high school, which no parent thinks of doing, because you look at go to school, well, you know, and whenever you'll get to college, or we'll decide where you want to go, whatever, we'll get our certificate. So the government now, based on Bill 96, it's in the bill. If you haven't requested these certificates before graduating high school, the government can't give them to you. So you finish.
So you got to go to French.
So you got to go to French. No, you can go to English. You can go because there's no obstruction from the government in higher education. You can choose to go anywhere you want. But if you go into CEGEP, into English CEGEP, because you're coming from the French system, you need to do the French exit exam that all the other kids do, rather than doing whatever English exit exam they do in the English schools. I don't know if it's clear. Yeah. Like when you finish high school, before going into college, you do an exit exam. So if you're in English school, you do an English exit exam, and if you're in French, you do a French exit exam.
And what happens if you fail it?
Well, I guess, I don't know. Nobody really fails those. I mean, I don't even know why they do them, but I don't think I've ever met anyone that has failed them. The question isn't that. The question is that.
What about Poseidon? Sorry, man. He wasn't even paying attention. What happened? Did you fail your English, your exit exam after high school?
What's that?
I didn't even have an exit exam. Did you graduate from high school?
I failed, and then I went to adult education.
Oh, okay.
That explains it, yeah. So normally there's an exit exam to get into CEGEP. So now all these...
And I skipped CEGEP, sorry.
Because of the age.
Because of the age, yeah. I just waited till I was 21. I went to university. I did 1 year, and I was like, fuck this.
Fuck this shit. Yeah. There you go. So now all these families. so the concern now.
What about the girls? Lots of girls.
I found them cute, but the thing is, you had to pass to stay, otherwise it would kick you out.
No, just hang out. Just hang out at the university cafe.
Sorry, George. We keep sidetracking.
So what's happening now? All these families, they're concerned because their kids don't feel comfortable enough to taking the French exit exam. Even though they're going into an English CEGEP, they still have to do the French exit exam.
And they've taken their high school in French.
Yeah.
How could they not feel
Well,
comfortable
that's the
taking
question.
the exam?
That's the question I have. But then again, who knows? Because if you're just going to school in French, but your entire life you're spending it in English, I don't know. Maybe you don't have the confidence. I don't know. That's honestly the flip side of the coin. And that was my argument. It's like, dude, you've gone to French school, elementary and high school. You should be well prepared to take this exam.
So
but
what's the controversy? Just the fact
well,
that
the
you have to
controversy
take
is
the
that a lot of
exam?
these kids now, they don't feel confident enough to take this exam.
Okay.
And a lot of them are saying, look, fuck it, I'm not going to pass and I'll go to school somewhere else. So either they're going to leave the province or and besides that fact, it comes down to what our rights are as an English speaking community. So you have the presidents of the English school board that are coming in and saying, listen, this is unconstitutional. This is their right. It's their right to have these English eligibility certificates. Why the fuck would the government block them from getting them? Which is a very good point. But the government, because they're dipped into the fonctionnaire, into the civil service kind of thing, like, well, these are the rules. If you haven't requested it before, based on the new law that was passed, you need to do the exam like everyone else. So it's this very fine line. The English community has been frustrated like we can't imagine in the last couple of weeks, especially since we spoke about this last episode. The government decided to increase the tuition fees by doubling
for out of province universities
for English universities. So there seems to be this targeted attack towards the English community. But in this situation, it's the bill. That's what the bill says, and it was passed in the National Assembly. Where the hell were all the English-speaking MNAs to contest it? And I'm thinking my friend Greg Kelly and all other English-speaking MNAs who now are on social media criticizing the government for doing this. But at the same time, this was in the bill. Why did you guys vote for it, right?
Yeah.
Well, vote for it. I mean, the guy had a majority, so whatever the case would be, it would pass anyway. But they spent weeks upon weeks studying this bill in committee. No one thought of maybe amending it or
the English community doesn't rock the boat. When was the last time the English community really rocked the boat? I would say 1989 with the Equality Party.
Equality Party.
Yeah, Robert Libman and Gord Atkinson and William Holden was
I can't remember their names, but they defected from the Liberals and actually won.
Yeah, they did. Yeah. They didn't. It was a kind of a flash in the pan. They fizzled out, but it was a vociferous reaction from the community at the time, and that was over the notwithstanding clause, if I'm not mistaken. Was it not? It was. I think Barrasso was in power, and he passed. I think that was the language of signs that sparked that whole thing.
It was the loi de l'affichage. It was the
like English has to be only half the size
of
of French. Yeah, but that's the last time and the only time in the 35 years I've lived in Quebec that I can remember the English community ever really going, hey, you know what? Fuck you. And, for all the good that it did, they got four ineffective MNAs elected to the National Assembly who didn't. It was symbolic more than anything.
Yeah. It still happens to, like the last, was it the last federal election or the last provincial election? There was the, I forget what the fuck the name of the party's name was, the Canadian Party of Quebec.
Yeah. I don't remember the name of the party
Standish or Standish or some shit like that.
Yeah, but they went nowhere. They went absolutely nowhere. At least the Equality Party had some success at the polls.
Yeah, well, they had cabinet ministers defect from the government and ran independent. Well, not independently, but in that party. So there was a certain weight that was put.
And this was federal.
Movement. No, this was provincial. The guy I'm talking about? He was provincial.
Colin Standish, was that his name?
I think that was his name.
He was the leader?
Yeah. The Canadian Party of Quebec, something like that.
Yeah.
They went nowhere. And to a certain extent, Balarama Holness tried to do the exact same thing. The guy that ran for mayor of Montreal, and his whole thing was, we're going to go to get the English community because we want Montreal to be a bilingual city. I mean, to me, it's ridiculous, the stuff that he was proposing. And then after the municipal election, he created a provincial party. In the last election.
You hate this guy.
Sounds like a porn.
I don't hate. Hate is a big word. I don't hate anybody. It's just nonsense to me.
It sounds like a porn star name too.
Balarama.
He was Balarama Holness.
I think he played for the Alouettes.
He did.
Balarama your holes nest. Hey.
So there are, sporadic kind of movements here and there to kind of please to the English community. But I'm curious to know what's going to happen now because they seem to be, and there's so many things, and we've spoken about this on other episodes, where we're in this period where what counts now to govern Quebec is who is the most nationalist party, right? Who cares mostly for Quebec's interests, right? And this is where the Liberal Party has fallen behind because they completely fumbled with Bill 96. The English community, they lost their trust in that party. I don't know where the English community stands today because they honestly, politically, I feel like they're orphaned. They're like, who do we support? Who do we support? You know, the governing party keeps fucking putting up obstacles for us. You have the PQ, which they never supported, but even if they would think of supporting it, and we're going to speak about that now. You have the leader who just came out with the proposition of the year one budget of a newly sovereign Quebec. Yeah. He presented that on Monday. So obviously that closes the door for them there. And at the same time, when they think strategically, they're like, oh, what are we going to support? We're going to support a brand new party that is going to go nowhere. We won't have any representation.
What about the Conservatives?
The Conservatives, Éric Duhaime kind of tried to appease them, but it didn't work. Maybe.
Well, you're not going to be successful as a political party without a strong slate of candidates, right?
Yeah.
So that's the first thing that I would think any party that wants to appeal to the English community needs to do. They need to field a strong set of candidates that appeals to the English community, and I guess that's hard to find in Quebec.
I mean, they do have like the West Island has English speaking MNAs. They run and they're safe in those ridings, right? And I think the confusion is: do we ditch the Liberal Party to send a message? And instead get zero representation, or at least vote them in and know that even if we're not happy with them, at least we have someone that we can force to carry our message through. And I think they're kind of in that context right now. But with everything happening now, the next elections are going to be quite something. I don't know. They're still farther in 2026.
Well, it's going to be the CAQ and the PQ, right? It's going to come down to that.
See, I have a French podcast, Politiquement Parlant, and the guy that I host that podcast with, Salim, a super smart guy. He's worked in cabinet as a cabinet, as a ministerial cabinet staffer, advised a couple of ministers in government, and he thinks that the CAQ and the PQ cannot coexist. They can't. He thinks that at any point in time, if one or the other need to govern, it means that one of the two parties has to fucking drop. They can't both coexist.
Well, they coexist right now, do they not?
Well, not really, because the PQ only has 4 MNAs.
Okay.
So coexist as a party, yeah. I mean, the party is going to exist, but I'm saying significantly to take power, like as a government. Like you can't have a strong CAQ and a strong PQ. That's what his theory is.
Because they split the vote?
No, because the CAQ got to where it got because it picked up a lot of PQ support and a significant part of the Liberal vote as well. So if the PQ starts growing again in people's opinion, that's only going to take back the vote from the CAQ. So he thinks that it's one or the other. It can't be both at the same time. So it's going to be interesting because, and I've been saying this from the last elections, from last October, the PQ is doing great work. I don't know.
Well, they kicked ass in that by-election in Quebec City.
They destroyed in that by-election. Right. Ever since the election in October 2022, with Paul Saint-Pierre Plamondon, it's his young, smart, eloquent, charismatic leader. He is a starch supporter of independence of Quebec, and he's bringing back all those old PQ supporters that were there for that one reason, right? To that hope that
Aren't
one
they all
day.
dead now?
Well, no, there's still the younger generations that didn't know where they stood, and then they went and supported Quebec Solidaire because of their more social platform, and they're still there. There's a lot of separatist votes still in Quebec,
right?
And Legault seems to have won it all because he's playing that nationalist card. He's like, look, I'm not a separatist and I'm not a federalist. I'm a nationalist. I'm here for Quebec. Right. And that seems to have worked for him, and it's still working for him. But with the PQ taking this direction, it wouldn't surprise me if in the next election they do much, much better. To the point where maybe the Liberals actually risk losing the official opposition to that extent if the Liberals don't get their fucking act together.
You don't think the PQ could beat the CAQ?
I don't think so. I think it's a lot. Look, anything could happen.
When's the next?
2026.
Oh, okay.
So it's a long. It's in 3 years.
Yeah.
I think though the PQ can do definitely, put a big dent in the CAQ.
Right.
I don't know if they have
What's
what
the
it
split of seats right now?
The CAQ has 89.
Okay.
The Liberals have, I think, 18.
Wow.
Yeah, 18. And then you have Quebec Solidaire with 11 or 12, PQ with 4. And I think there's one independent now.
Boy, that's a strong majority, eh?
No, they're not going anywhere. See, and they overreacted. They lost that by-election up in Quebec City, and immediately Legault started panicking. He's like, "Oh, we're gonna think again. We're gonna revisit the question of the tunnel that they had canceled, and that whole created a whole chaos up in Quebec, which I think ultimately led to the defeat." So immediately the day after, he's like, okay, we're going to revisit the question. And then you have to fucking divert right away. Okay, well, let's get the attention away from that. And then right away, the week after, they fucking attacked the English universities. And it's this whole act of just getting attention away from what hurt them and into something that they can bank on, which is this whole nationalist ideology. But then just to go back to the PQ, this fucking kid is intelligent. This guy... There were three.
Plamondon. Yeah. When you say kid, how old is he?
He's in his
30s,
late 30s, early 40s. I think he's a really young guy, and I think he's maybe early 41, probably around my age, 42. What was I saying? So. I forgot what I was about to say. Oh yeah, so this guy, what he succeeded at doing. You have to think one thing. There were 3 M&As. So with the order that they have in the question period and all that, they would get I think 3 or 4 questions per week because of the
PQ.
Yeah. And yet they managed to bring up points that they would almost exclusively monopolize the visibility. With that whole thing with a swearing-in ceremony to the king that they caused in the beginning of the legislature. Everyone was talking about them. There were only 3 fucking M&As, and they would manage to bring forth these topics that would almost entirely capture all the visibility. Now they have 4 M&As. I think they're up to like 5 questions a week, which is still nothing. And yet, everyone is talking about the PQ. They came out now with this proposition of a hypothetical year one of hypothetic year one budget of an independent Quebec. And I'm telling you, all the way until the end of the year, that's all we're going to be talking about. So it's incredible what this kid has done.
How do you come up with a hypothetical budget when you don't know for certain what your currency is going to be?
This is an interesting question and this is not the first time this happens, right? The year one, l'année 1.
Because I think that's the big. If Quebec were ever to separate or vote to separate, I think the first big question right out of the gate is, okay, what are you using for a currency? What are you using for a currency?
Yeah.
Because could Canada not just say, fuck you, you're not using our dollar?
Oh, for sure. They could very well say that. But and we're going to get to the details of what he proposed. But this whole year one thing is not new. This is not Paul Saint-Pierre Plamondon's invention. They had done this exercise in the 70s with René Lévesque.
Well, they probably did it with Parizeau too in the 90s, right?
They did it in the 90s. Legault had presented his year one budget when he was finance minister under the PQ government.
Who was he finance minister for? Marois?
No, Landry.
Okay.
Yeah, Landry. And this is a whole thing now. Like, you have to understand the political games that Plamondon is playing with the CAQ, because he's bringing up things that is putting Legault really in a bad situation, because he's like, listen, we're basing our research on the 2005 report that was presented by none other than today's premier. So how can you come out against what we're proposing when you were saying the exact same things fucking 20 years ago, So it was in 2005, and then now he's doing one. So it's a recurring thing every time it's a chicken or an egg kind of thing. Do you wait to get support so that you can head on into this policy of sovereignty, or do you find something to rally the troops and get them excited so that you can grow your support? And that's what he's doing. I think it's going to work for him. And it's fascinating, because just to go back to your question about the numbers, what he's saying in his presentation, I took the time. It's a 30-minute video that, it's his presentation for anyone. It's an 84-page document. I didn't read it. But what he's proposing is that if we take Quebec in the actual context today, and this is where the trick is, when you learn to read between the lines, this is the in between the lines. He says, if we imagine Quebec in its actual context today, which you can't, because if you are sovereign, there's other things that have to get added on, and we're going to talk about that. But the analysis, the methodology that he used, and again, this is directly to attack Legault because that's Legault's methodology. Legault's methodology was, let's say we take Quebec in its actual context, whatever we have today, and we subtract everything that we give to Canada, to the federal government. Where are we financially? And we've known for decades that if you take that methodology, Quebec's finances could work independently. But that's only if you consider Quebec in the actual context. What do we have now today? And let's subtract what we give to the federal government. But at the same time, you have to forget everything you get back. Do we have gains? And economically, fiscally, it works. So he's thinking in his analysis, and it's not him, right? I mean, he had top guys to look into these things. There are over $80 billion of money that's going to stay in Quebec that we give every year to the federal government through taxation and all that sort of thing.
That's in this currency, though.
Yeah, but this is like if you take the actual context. So what do we give to the federal government every year? That we won't have to because we won't be paying taxes to the federal government anymore.
But what about what Quebec gets?
So it's much less than what we give. So that's why.
Really, Because I always thought Quebec was a have-not province versus a have province.
The big, and he's right in this. The big misconception is that we always allude to the transfer payments of $14 billion. Where you're going to miss that. But his argument, which is true, is that $14 billion that the government of Canada or the federal government gives us to Quebec. Quebecers contribute to it. It's our tax dollars that fucking contribute to this money. Yeah. So in reality, out of that $14 billion that we get back, Quebecers contribute about $9 billion. Contribute about what was it? I think $6 billion or whatever.
So about $5 billion. About a third.
So in that 14 billion, we already contribute for about 4 or 5 billion. So in reality, the net amount that we get back is about 9 billion. Okay. Is the math right?
How much of that is mine?
None of it is yours.
Come on. Just $1 billion.
Can you imagine? Straight into your account. There's a Revenue Quebec mistake, and it's deposited into Ted Bird's
account.
The
order of.
Yeah.
You know what? Every year, instead of spreading, like you remember when they have like overages and they spread it amongst all the citizens? What they should do is, let's say they have $1 billion in overages. What they should do, how many millions are in a billion?
How many?
1,000.
1,000 million.
Yeah.
Okay. They should take 1,000 people every year and give them $1 million each.
I'm in. Sign me up.
That's not bad. Think about it. It would take. But that's
Now he's got to do
just
math.
don't worry about it, bro. Don't worry about it. So George, so basically all this to counter that argument about the transfer payments, in reality we don't get back 14 billion, we get back 9 because the rest we've already given it to them, right? So based on that number, they come out with a financial situation that could be steady for Quebec. But again, when we read between the lines, he specifically says that this is in the actual context. But if Quebec is independent, you're going to need a foreign affairs department. You're going to need a defense department. You're going to need a department that in Ottawa it's the Royal Mint. Basically, they print money, so you're going to need that over here. It's a lot of fucking money. Yeah. So how about that context? So it's one thing to say that in the current situation, Quebec would be financially sustainable on its own, which even liberal, I think even Jean Charest in the early 2000s said that. He goes, yeah, of course. But does that mean that we need to separate because we can make it off on our own?
I've always thought that the one thing that prevented the separatist side from winning a referendum is economic uncertainty. I've always thought that people who vote, I've always thought there are a lot of Quebecers who go, French Quebecers who would like to have their own country, but they don't want to fuck around with economics. They would rather have the security, the economic security of being part of Canada.
And so this is the face.
So if they could sell it such that no, we'll be fine economically. if they could sell that, I think they'd have a shot.
There's a lot of question marks because if you look at it as he analyzed it and the way they've been analyzing for you, because this obviously feeds into their argument, right? That it makes sense. And yes, it does make sense. The way you're calculating it now, maybe it does make sense. But there are so many other factors that's a huge question mark that we don't know. What else do you need as an independent nation, and what is it going to cost you to support those needs and those services, right? One example is the defense. Do you know what it takes to run a defense department? The military arsenal, the personnel, the whole civil service of running a defense, the foreign affairs. Right now, Quebec has foreign delegations, which is great, but they're mostly situated strategically around the world where there is a presence of francophonie, and it's mostly for cultural and educational exchanges. And I think there's about 20 of those. But this is completely different. You're going to need now 190 offices or maybe more, because you can't just have one embassy. You need consular services as well in other cities, personnel. Like, it's a lot of fucking money. So how about that? How about has there been one analysis on that front? And on that front, I don't know, because if you're saving $83 billion and you're saying that this is ours now, yeah, but contributing $83 billion is just a portion of what it costs to have that at a federal level, because every other province contributes. I'm fine with that. So how much better can you provide these services? In addition to that, the other point that they're making is that there's a lot of overlapping services. Like if, for example, Quebec were independent, you wouldn't need Revenue Canada. You don't need to do a two declarations. So we're going to save money over there. And there's all these things like Service Canada, all these services that we have over here that we're paying for that we don't necessarily need because we already have those services provincially as well. So this is their argument. Phase 2, I hope, and based on what he said, is to analyze that what if, that question mark. The defense, the money, the foreign affairs, all these services that you need as a country, which right now in his analysis isn't there. And this is an exercise that hasn't ever been done because they're just sticking to the mathematics that if tomorrow, as we separate, financially, we're better off on our own than we are with the rest of Canada. Again, is this going to happen? This guy is adamant about separating. He's thinking that if we make government in 2006, by 2007, there's a referendum to separate. Are they going to make a government? Again, going from 4 MNAs to 63 that you need to govern, and 63 is a minority government. Actually, no, it's +1 majority. Is it even a realistic objective? I doubt it, So all I think for now is that this is a great exercise for the PQ to rally their members and to get people excited. And I think it's definitely going to help them to the point where, like I said, if the Liberals don't get their fucking act in order, they may very well lose the official opposition.
Yeah. I still think they need a grievance, though. I think the PQ, the separatists need a grievance to really get them over the top with a referendum. They need somebody important to go, fucking Frenchmen. And then they'll have their thing.
Yeah. Oh, because the other thing.
I have a question. There's also the argument of if Quebec were to separate because there was an agreement with Quebec and the rest of Canada when they joined Canada.
Yeah, that was the argument back in 95. You probably remember this in 95 with that referendum. That was a massive fucking campaign, right? And it was so close, that referendum. And for the first time, you saw federal, like the liberal, the federal parties combine and work together, like the Conservatives with the Liberals. Jean Charest at that time with Jean Chrétien, they had this beautiful little fucking coalition going. And the argument, I can't remember which one of the two was saying it. And I remember watching this live on TV when they were saying it. They were saying that if Quebec were to separate, what would Quebec look like? Because Quebec, when it came into the Federation, it wasn't the Quebec that it is today in terms of land.
Geographically.
So would they take only the Lower Canada, which is what they came into with? Right. But that's a stupid argument. I mean, Quebec is what it is now. financially, though, I mean, they would have to pay back their portion of Canada's debt, right? So it's not that simple.
We're into the trillions now, I believe, are we not?
Yeah.
No
The
way.
national debt, the American debt is fucking crazy.
Yeah, and they keep fucking
just
adding
keep
to it, right?
piling
Especially
on,
now with
yeah.
the conflict in Israel.
Yeah.
They're just giving money away like it's
Yeah.
fucking candy.
To who?
To
To
Ukraine,
the military-industrial
to-
complex.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, they're giving money to, and they're writing them a check. Pay to the order of.
The problem that the U.S. is
Zelensky.
going to have now is that Congress isn't in session. They're having a huge problem now with the election of a new speaker in Congress, and there's a big fear that everything is just going to stop in the U.S. So if Congress isn't there to approve these things, then how can they send money to Ukraine or to Israel or wherever the fuck they're sending money?
And also, Peepaw doesn't know where he is half the time,
jeez,
right?
man. Someone needs to tell it. Like, honestly, it breaks my heart because you're not capable of running a fucking country, dude. You're not.
Yeah, well, at this point, he's just a doddering old figurehead. I don't know who's calling the shots, but it can't be him.
Well, someone needs to be calling the shots. I mean, someone still needs to run the country. He's the front figure, obviously.
Yeah.
But to think that this man wants to run again, it's difficult to accept. There's no fucking way that the party doesn't see this.
Yeah.
So I don't know if there's a strategy in place as they get closer. When is the
think what
election?
happened was
in
they just-
2024.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
2024.
Yeah. Like about a year from now.
So
A year
they
and a
need to
bit.
start campaigning now.
Yeah.
Normally, no.
Yeah. And who would be the viable alternatives to Biden on the
Well, there
Democratic
isn't.
side?
That's what we were talking about last episode, where for the
Yeah.
first time ever, I've seen someone contest the president as the leader of the Democratic Party.
Was it with Terry that we brought up RFK Jr. and I don't know if it was Terry or it was somebody said no, he's crazy.
I don't think he's crazy.
It was here, I think.
Yeah, maybe it was Terry. Who said that. Yeah, I don't remember. What is talking. That's awful. We shouldn't make fun of that. But
I don't think he's bad. You saw a couple of weeks ago he announced that he's running independently.
Yeah.
So
no, I don't think he's crazy. I think he's pretty smart. Actually, I've listened to some of his stuff, and
It's just that it's very easy to label someone as a wacko.
well, yeah, and he's labeled as a wacko because he's skeptical about vaccines, among other things.
As he should.
Yeah, I think
As everyone should, I think. I think you should.
Well, with all the
Not just
facts that we have
vaccines.
now, like if you, in retrospect, everyone should be fucking questioning what the hell did you guys do to us?
Yeah.
There's so much documentation right now that is coming out.
And apparently, it's not even. I don't know if we spoke about this already. It's not even. It's not even what they tested. What they gave us. So we don't know what the fuck they gave us.
No, but apparently there wasn't.
No, what they tested is not what they gave us.
Right.
It's like me testing a steak and I give you fucking salmon.
pork chop.
Nice.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So look, to finish up with these guys over there in the States, I mean, I don't know what they're going to do, and it's difficult for me to imagine that the leadership of the Democratic Party doesn't see that this guy's not fit. So I don't know if there's a plan in place as we get to the end of this year for them to come out and say, look, he's not going to be running. I read somewhere that there may, and behind the scenes, there may be preparing Gavin Newsom from the
the
governor of California.
Yeah.
He's been getting a lot of visibility, especially during the debate.
His name's been mentioned for quite a while now.
So I don't know if I don't know if the top guys are kind of preparing him behind the scenes. Is like, be quiet, like we're going to support you, but give us a few more months just to prepare everything.
Well, also it takes a while. I remember like Obama before he was elected in first time 2004, 2008. 2008.
Four.
Anyway, it was the election prior to that.
No,
where
eight. You're right.
In 2004, he spoke at the convention, and they went, "Wow, he's the next big thing." But he had to wait another 4 years after that. So maybe that's what they're doing with Newsom too. You know, they'll trot him out in 2024 and prime him, and then hopefully, from their perspective, get him elected in 2028.
So what? That means we're stuck for another 4 years with Biden?
Well, I don't know. Or what's going to happen? What's going to happen with Trump? Is he still the front runner on the Republican side? And
will he be allowed to run?
Well, I don't know. Is he going to be in prison, or what's going to happen with him? Because he's still before the courts, right?
I don't know. It seems though that the Republican members support him way more than anyone else.
Well, I think because he's got the best chance of winning. You know, say what you will about the guy, but he's got huge support in Middle America.
What would happen if the Republican Party disqualifies him because of everything happening? Because I feel that they're afraid to do that so that they don't create this huge problem within their party.
Well, I think they've got other viable candidates. I think that DeSantis is a viable candidate. I think that long name buddy, Alphabet there. Listen to me, I'm quite the political pundit. I don't even know the guy's name. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The businessman with the name that's worth like 50,000 points in Scrabble.
Vivek,
Vivek, long last name. Yeah, I've seen him interviewed and I've listened to him speak. He's a very intelligent guy. Nikki Haley is, I believe she's a former ambassador to the United Nations. So she's a very
bright,
capable and accomplished woman who could be a viable candidate as well.
What about the guy from New Jersey? What's his face? Chris Christie. What's his name?
No, he's too fat.
You're overweight.
Hey, you can't have big fat fatty in the White
Get on the
House.
scale, sir.
Has there ever been a fat? Well, I was going to say, has there ever been a fat president? Trump's no skinny mini Miller, is he?
Yeah. Oh. Anyway. There have been fat presidents before, no?
There must have been. Yeah, I think William Taft was. I think he was a bit of a porker.
But
there's some more strong political analysis. Eh? Who was the fattest president?
But I feel though that the Republican Party probably doesn't want to disqualify, because even if they're competent enough to run as presidents, do you want to create that crisis in your party where you have almost, I think, more than half support Trump?
Yeah.
Or
yeah,
around
like
half.
I say, I think he's got or he is perceived by the Republicans as having the best chance to win.
But he's being destroyed on a daily basis, man, from one court to another. Like, goddamn.
Yeah, I don't know, because I have not been following his court cases that closely. I know that he was one of his lawyers pleaded guilty to something this week. Was it his lawyer or one of his organizers? I don't know.
Something. I read that. Yeah, I read that too. She pleaded guilty. There's a lot of stuff, and I'm hearing arguments on either sides, and they both make sense. And I get the side that says they just want to paint a negative picture. I get that, but at the same time, there is documented evidence of him getting involved, like in electoral fraud and whatever the other frauds that he's involved with his business, which I don't know. At some point, dude, get the message. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, it's the Democrats have been accused of using lawfare to try to destroy him before the 2024 election, because I think they're afraid that he can beat Biden. And
I think at this point, anyone can beat Biden.
Yeah.
Can he even hold up a discussion? But can he even do a debate? He's lost. He's lost.
Yeah, he really is. He's cognitively impaired.
And, I don't feel bad for him as a politician because he's screwing up. I feel bad every time I see those videos and images of him completely lost. The poor man needs help. Like, this guy needs medical attention urgently.
Yeah.
Like, just, sorry, buddy, go to a senior's home now and, I don't know, fucking...
And bad plastic surgery, too. That's really bad. If he looks like a fucking puppet. He looks like... Remember the guys from... South Park did that puppet movie, Team America.
Oh, that was so fun.
He looks like he's from Team America. He looks like one of the puppets from Team America.
I didn't know it was South Park guys.
Yeah.
That movie was,
it was very
fucking
funny.
hilarious.
Yeah.
It was hilarious.
Yeah.
Speaking of legal issues, I want to bring it back to Canada because there's a growing concern right now happening in Ottawa with respect to Justin Trudeau possibly obstructing justice. For those who remember, it was early 2019. I remember right after the election. So what was that? They had an election in 2019, so it was early 2020, sorry. It was right before COVID, I think, where there was this issue with SNC-Lavalin. SNC-Lavalin is an engineering consulting firm from Quebec, huge reputation worldwide, dipped in all these scandals and corruption charges and all that stuff. And they were facing trial. And Justin Trudeau, back in those days, I'm just going to bring everyone into context here. They were threatening to close their offices because they're like, listen, we can't sustain this anymore. We're dipped in all these legal affairs, and there was a serious threat of SNC-Lavalin closing up shop, especially in Quebec, where there's, I think, over 10,000 employees, or probably more than that in Quebec. So just
would have had a big impact on the economy.
Huge. I mean, this is a huge Quebec company, global company. And you can't fucking afford that, especially in the prime minister's province. So this is one of those issues where, as a politician, what the fuck do you do? It's a damned if you do, damned if you don't kind of thing. Because if you don't get involved and the company closes, you're fucked. They're gonna criticize you for losing jobs. I think it was 14,000 jobs. Yeah. And if you get involved to help them out and you save those jobs, they're gonna accuse you of obstructing justice, which is exactly what happened. And for those interested, basically Justin Trudeau wanted to get involved through his justice minister to figure out a deal where they could coexist but not face the most severe criminal charges, but yet still pay the fines that they were supposed to pay. Anyway, and from what I read at that time, this is something that was it would happen quite frequently with these big businesses that would get caught into these corruption scandals from all over the world. His justice minister said, no, fuck, I can't. I'm the attorney general and justice minister. I cannot get involved in the judicial matter. I mean, it's part of our rules.
It would be conflict of interest.
Exactly. So she said no. He fired her. He brought in another justice minister. Finally, they did that whole thing. They saved the jobs because that's how they sold it. And under the pressure of the opposition, there was an investigation launched. So the RCMP did an investigation to verify if whether or not the prime minister was obstructing justice. And they came out this past June, with a report that said there's insufficient evidence to prove that the prime minister or anyone around him was involved in obstructing justice. But now, a week ago or 2 weeks ago, there was another article that came out, I think, in the National Post, to the effect that not only did the RCMP not do their job correctly, but the different cabinets that they went to get crucial information to conduct their investigation, blocked them from getting access to these documents, which is absurd if you think of it. I mean, what fucking country are we living in where you have your police authority, the RCMP, coming conducting an investigation, and you from the ministerial cabinet don't provide the necessary documents that they need? That's unheard of.
Is that not by definition obstruction of justice? Of course it is.
But forget about what they do. We know fucking there's something wrong with Justin Trudeau and his whole governance. But as the police force, how do you even accept that? How do you not come out immediately and say, this is what's happening over at the government. You guys figure it out. This is the documents that we need, and get them to us immediately. So what the fuck is happening over at the RCMP as well? This is not only an issue with Trudeau's government, it's an issue also at the RCMP.
And presumably those questions would have been asked at the parliamentary committee.
For sure.
That was suspended.
So there you have it.
Closed down.
When was it? On Monday, I think, there was a parliamentary committee that was called. And the argument that the Liberals and the Bloc Québécois and the NDP are using is that based on the regulations, it has to be called 48 hours before in order for them to get...
The commissioner of the RCMP and the investigating officer in the SNC-Lavalin case were both there. They were at the committee hearing meeting. Yeah. Ready to testify, and it got shut down.
And we saw this because I can't remember his name. There was a member of parliament for the Conservatives.
Michael Barrett?
Michael Barrett. Yeah. He was filming, and he goes, look, we're right here. They just fucking...
They closed, they shut it down.
They shut it down.
Yeah.
They shut it down.
There's the commissioner of the RCMP right there.
Yeah.
There's the investigating officer who looked into this whole thing there, but they closed the committee down before they could question them.
But think of the waste of fucking time, energy, and money. You call these people in, they come, they sit, they're ready to go, and then this whole show starts from the Liberal, Bloc, and NDP members on details. Like, no, we can't do this because the session has to be, the invitations have to be sent 48 hours before, which wasn't the case now, blah, blah, blah. So because we didn't follow procedure, we should suspend and take it over again. What the fuck kind of banana republic are we living in?
I can understand the Liberals not wanting the commissioner and the investigating officer of the RCMP to be questioned, but why would the Bloc and the NDP jump on the bandwagon with them?
I don't know. I mean, look, if you look at the argument that they made, maybe it makes sense because the procedures weren't followed. So the rules that are in place weren't followed, and I get that. But at the same time, isn't this a big enough issue that requires this sort of examination? And they're there. They came.
100%. Well, it's the Prime Minister dodging another ethics bullet. To me,
This is ridiculous.
yeah.
How many things is this guy going to get away from?
Everything from the looks of things, and the media is soft on him. Imagine if that had been Stephen Harper.
It would have never happened.
Well, if it did happen and it was Stephen Harper, the media would be all over it like a smell.
For
But
sure.
with Trudeau, they always give him a pass because he's their
And
boy.
I'm wondering,
Because he's
would
funding them.
Yeah, well, that helps. Yeah,
Well, yeah,
he's,
but
he's their boy.
Yeah, but every government has funded the RCMP.
No, the media we're talking about.
The media. Yeah. But then again, the media wouldn't have covered this either had it not been for that video that was leaked from inside the committee.
Yeah.
So I saw that and I was like, what the fuck? I've never seen anything like this. In all my years working in politics, I have never, ever seen this sort of fucking clown show.
Can you repeat to me what happened? Because I was busy.
Fucking guy, bro. So we have to pay for it because you went to piss.
Shit, actually.
No, what happened was they brought the RCMP.
You hear that on the CBC panels a lot.
Every day.
Yeah,
Every day. Sorry, folks, we're gonna go to break because I gotta take a shit. Here's a word from our sponsors. They brought in the RCMP to question them because the investigation they had done to look into that SNC-Lavalin thing. There was an article that came out that said that a lot of ministerial cabinets refused to give them access to information that they needed for their investigation. And the RCMP came out and said, oh, well, we didn't have sufficient proof to show that there was obstruction of justice. And they thought it would end there. But when they realized that, no, there was sufficient evidence that you didn't push hard enough to get, so you're responsible, and the cabinet or the personnel working.
What did he do?
Who?
It was about what, though?
It was back in the day with SNC-Lavalin, with Wilson Raybould.
it's still ongoing, this thing.
Well, there was an investigation to see if whether or not there was obstruction of justice, if Justin Trudeau really got involved in it, because he did get an ethics violation back in the day. The ethics commissioner gave him a strike, and they thought, well, fuck, if they found sufficient material there to give him an ethics violation, then there should be something more deep. So they launched this whole other investigation. The RCMP came out, oh, well, look, insufficient evidence. Do your fucking job properly, man. So for me, this is, I don't know where it's going to go, and I don't know if they're going to call them back or put them back in schedule somewhere, because there's a whole other thing that they're investigating now, even with the Auditor General. This is another thing that didn't make the media. They suspended a parliamentary committee hearing with the Auditor General, who came to present financial facts that the fucking economy is going to shit, and they suspended that as well. So I don't know what the fuck is going on in Ottawa. It's not looking good for Justin Trudeau. Every poll that is coming out in the last couple of weeks, they keep fucking dropping lower and lower.
But he can hang on till 2025, can he not?
Yeah, but to what extent? I mean, right now there's a lot of division in this caucus with the whole Israel and Hamas situation.
I saw a video online that said that if Trudeau threatened Hamas that if they don't stop or some shit, he'll put the H in LGBTQ, whatever the fuck it is now.
No,
that was a parody.
Oh, okay.
The controversy over there is that he had there's a lot of pressure in his caucus because there's a lot of people in his caucus that are pro-Palestine, and they're pressuring him to come out and make a formal statement on a ceasefire. He's not doing that. They're just coming out and saying we have to make sure that that it doesn't escalate, because there's fears now that war might be spread in Lebanon with Hezbollah. There were some bombings yesterday, I heard, in Syria. So that conflict over there can escalate in seconds, which I think is why the Israeli forces haven't engaged yet into a land invasion, which was initially the plan. There's over 300,000 troops waiting along the border. Finally, they let in humanitarian aid, but they're controlling it because they don't know who's coming in or who can potentially leave.
And where does the humanitarian aid go? If Hamas is in charge, they're just going to take it.
Yeah.
No?
So there are provisions coming in, but they're limiting them. Like they don't want gas or or any fuel coming in because they know that can very easily go to Hamas. So it's a dire situation on a humanitarian level, and we see it every day. And the hospitals. I was listening on the radio this morning on French radio. They were interviewing some director of UNRWA, the UN mission in Gaza, and they're at a point where the hospitals can only run for about 1 more week. They don't have the required supplies to have the gas to desalinate water, to make the hospitals run, the schools, all that stuff. And if they don't get gas into Gaza right now, they're going to have to make a very difficult decision where they're going to have to close down hospitals in order to kind of redistribute these resources to the main hospitals, right? And that would be tragic. But at the same time, you understand the Israeli point of view. It's like, if we bring in supplies that are going to go into the wrong hands, then we're disadvantaging ourselves.
Yeah,
at the
100%.
Same time, at the same time, how do we know who comes in and who leaves? If we let this humanitarian aid come in and we open the border, the people that are leaving, are there any Hamas terrorists that are getting on those and fucking off? Because the idea for them is to stop them. So it's a delicate situation. And to go back to Trudeau, he's getting a lot of pressure from his caucus. He's playing it really, really on the line. And his caucus, once again, is divided. They've been divided for months now.
What's Bill Blair's portfolio?
He's defense.
He came out yesterday and said Hamas, like point blank, no fucking around, Hamas needs to be destroyed.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
he was very unequivocal in his support for Israel and its mission to destroy Hamas.
But then you have Melanie Joly, who's the Foreign Affairs Minister, who is kind of playing it safe.
Hot.
You know,
that's what she's kind of hot. Poseidon, have you seen her? Yeah,
she's very jolie.
She is. Yeah.
Hey, Melanie Jolie is Jolie.
How you doing? There's some more strong political analysis right there, right? Why do we never get invited on CBC?
I love how it starts seriously, and then it just degenerates.
I think there's a few clues that we can address.
Oh, my God. All right, guys, we're gonna put an end to the show today. Thank you.
Already?
Thank you so much for tuning in. We appreciate you. Keep sending us comments. We love hearing what you have to say. Share this content if you like it, and subscribe to the YouTube page. Head on over to patreon.com/Pantelis for all exclusive content. Make sure to check out Standing by the Terry and Ted podcast starting this morning, and it's going to go on for how many episodes you have this season?
We have 10. We have 11 actually. We have a bonus. We have a bonus episode because we spoke with Dick Irvin.
Oh, fuck!
The legendary Hockey Night in Canada broadcaster.
181.
Huh?
181 episodes.
Okay, I don't know what that means. Do you know what that means?
Okay.
All right.
It's a. I'm so dumb because it's such a deep meme. Like, it's a very niche meme joke.
So we would have to see it to understand.
Yes,
And yet you still fucking said it and ruined the conclusion of the show.
I'm sorry. I apologize.
As for me, guys, you can check me out at the Backstage Podcast and Politiquement Parlant if you're into this political stuff. Thank you all so much. We'll see you next week. Take care, guys.